likely first casualty of the development of these tools is going to be these business process and outsourcing companies.
It could be that GPT-5 is so amazing that it's literally melting GPUs.
I'm saying that AI is a long game.
It's going to be so simple to integrate AI that all they need to do is sign a contract.
Hey, and welcome to episode 7 of the Generation AI podcast, where every week we break down the latest trends, tools, and strategies in AI. So if you're building and you're looking to separate the signal from the noise, this is the podcast for you. Mihai, what are we covering in today's podcast?
So we have quite some news today. We look into yet another acquisition in the AI space. We'll look how data meets engineering to form even bigger and better company. We're looking into AI in the shipping industry. We're looking at the BPO industry. What's it, Callum? I see that on the agenda. What's BPO?
Business process outsourcing. We're going to look at how essentially the first casualties of the AI era could be these massive BPO global consultancies that have dominated the industry for the last 20 years. And we'll then finish with OpenAI's latest funding round at a eye-watering 300 billion valuation. I think that was the biggest funding round in history, if I'm not mistaken. And then if we have time at the end, we'll talk a little bit about Crew AI and the ongoing AI talent war. Mihai, I'm sure you're a very active participant in the AI talent war.
I guess people hunt for me. I hope so. I feel like the stage is kind of divided as well. We'll speak in a bit. There's multiple types of talents emerging now with all these automation things.
You mean vibe coders?
Could be. That's a niche. I guess people shop for vibe coders in the short term.
In the short term.
In the previous podcast, yeah. Not gonna last. Cool. So let's start with one pattern we've seen before. So last week we saw how big tech non-AI first companies acquire AI startups to kind of strengthen their foundation so they can build higher with the help of AI. In this week's podcast, xAI acquires Twitter. I think the valuation is around 70 or 80 billion of the whole company combined, not even close to the 300 billion of OpenAI. But the main take here is that Twitter is the social media company. You know, a ton of data there, a ton of user interactions. xAI is Elon Musk's AI company. I think a few months ago, they just announced that they bought a huge number of NVIDIA GPUs. So they were kind of preparing for what we see today as the AI race. How I view this partnership between xAI and Twitter, between X and xAI, is that data meets compute and engineering. And I think this is a pattern we've seen before. And I think it's an interesting pattern for the listener, especially for the people building tech companies and looking to invest in AI. I think you need to take care of both sides of the equation. You need to get your data sorted out, and you need to have your compute and engineering power ready to be deployed. And here's where companies like GenerationAI come into play, where if you're building tech and you need AI knowledge, you can outsource or at least partner with AI companies that are specialized in providing AI knowledge. So you can keep up with the AI trend. What's your take on this kind of acquisitions? Do you think it's just a PR game?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting how the LLM race is working, right? I mean, I think there is a house view that LLMs themselves are going to become commoditized. And I think if you believe that, I mean, there's interesting opinions either way, right? LLMs could be the foundational layer of the next wave of tech, and all the monetization could end up being with the LLMs themselves rather than the applications built on top of it. Or LLMs could just end up being merely infrastructure, and actually all of the monetization and the value will accrue to the applications that are built on top of it. Now, irrespective of how you feel about that, one potential edge for an LLM to get is the data. And if XAI own Twitter data or own Twitter, that's an incredibly valuable source of data that will allow them to differentiate their LLM. A comparison I'll probably make is with the when Microsoft acquired LinkedIn, they were essentially acquiring the world's biggest customer database that only they owned. And there became a ton of different ways for them to monetize that data over time and extract value from that data. And this is Elon Musk doing exactly the same thing, and using LLMs to facilitate that journey.
So you're basically saying that hardware is commoditized, models become commoditized, but data is still what makes a difference between a successful company and a company that just survives.
I'm saying that is the bet that Elon is probably making when he combines these two companies together. Yeah.
And looking at what Elon does, just combining let's say data with engineering knowledge, if you would be to build a company today, or if you'd be a founder today, would you build AI in-house, or would you partner with the company that's been doing AI already for some time?
Well, I think in the case of Twitter, it's kind of both, right? Like, I think Elon Musk acquired Twitter for what was the original acquisition cost?
I'll have to look it up. I'll put
Like
it on the
I think it
screen.
was over 10 billion or something,
In the
right?
billions, yeah.
So you got to think, okay, well, what was Twitter's monetization layer? The monetization layer was advertising.
Yep.
And, because Elon Musk has decided to be a political warrior, the advertising is no longer an effective monetization layer for Twitter. So I imagine that the reason why Elon Musk is putting an LLM wrapper around Twitter is because he needs a new monetization layer. He needs a new way to monetize Twitter, and I think XAI is probably his best shot of doing that.
Basically, getting Twitter in a new playing field just because they have the AI power. But with this AI power, do you think we'll see more AI generated content on Twitter, or will we see more moderation of other people's AI generated content that's kind of fake and not genuine?
What do you think?
I hope it's the second. I'm tired of seeing ChatGPT posts everywhere. You see them from a distance, right? They're the type of posts with emojis and perfect structure. So I hope we'll see more flagging of AI content.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, in Elon we trust? Question mark. Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But really, I think in the short term, this is just an Elon focused story. I think, we know about what happened between Elon and Sam Altman, and it remains to be seen. But on to more practical topics. The recent news this week was really interesting to me for a number of reasons. So we'll pull up the article in the show notes. But Mistral, which is basically a French large language model company, started by the former head of AI at Facebook. He left maybe, I don't know, 2 years ago now, the founder, and raised a massive round, 200-300 million round of funding at a crazy valuation weeks after he had left his role at Facebook. And so he's been building Mistral, which is basically the European competitor to OpenAI. And they announced this week that they'd signed a 100 million euro deal with shipping giant CMA CGM, which is a French shipping company headquartered out of Paris. I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, because the deal itself was huge. I mean, in the enterprise software space, a 1 million or a 2 million or a $5 million deal is a huge deal, and they rarely happen. It's not companies don't spend 5 million a year on software for fun. But the fact that CMA, CGM are paying 100 million euros over 5 years on this deal is just a massive, massive investment. And, if you're being honest, when you look into the final details, you can see that the shipping company in question have already invested in Mistral. So they're investors themselves. So obviously they have an added incentive here to do a deal with Mistral. But the use cases are interesting, right? So the 100 million, where's it going? What is the money being spent on? They're mainly using it to automate customer service operations. They're using it to automate back office operations, and they're using it to roll out agents across their business. Now that's multi-department, multi-country, and for me, the interesting thing will be, where is this project in 2 or 3 years' time? Because this is one of the first few times I've seen big enterprise adoption from a big enterprise company adopting LLM technologies. So it'll be very interesting to see, what is the impact on the business? Does it generate a return on investment? A quote from the CEO, for instance, says that the implementation of initiatives should not exceed 6 to 12 months, and that currently the AI agent is being developed to help advisors or customer service advisors with the 1 million emails they receive a week. And that's specifically on routing vessels, right? So is the development of this technology, is the rollout of this technology gonna mean a meaningful reduction in the amount of customer service requests or the amount of emails they're receiving? We don't know, but I'm curious to get your take on this.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I want to touch on. First of all, it's a deal happening in Europe. Both sides are in Europe. You said the shipping giant is French.
Both are French.
Mistral, Mistral is also French. So
Yeah.
happy to see that big deals in AI are being made in Europe, because as we discussed in previous podcasts, we have different set of regulations. We treat data privacy in a different way. So I'm happy to see that companies don't see that as a blocker to invest in local tech. And by local, I mean European. Second, you mentioned that a shipping giant is choosing language models, is investing in language models. I would say we shouldn't see this as a limitation. So it's not like they just put 100 million in LLMs. It's more than that, right? Because Mistral is providing multimodal models. They probably have ongoing projects on reasoning, on deep research, this kind of tasks. Yes, most of them are probably large models, but not everything is language. And I'm saying that in the context of shipping being an industry that over the last years has seen a ton of room for optimization. There's a ton of moving parts in shipping. You have cars, trains, freight. How do you optimize? How do you basically ship as much as possible for the lowest cost and for the highest profit? And it's getting hard to manage all these moving parts, all these information pieces manually or just with simple automation. And again, we're seeing AI applied in a field where the day-to-day operations might seem boring, right? Customer service, routing, this kind of simple things, right? Nothing flashy, no rocket science there. Just goods being delivered to customers cheap and fast. And I think this is where AI will see a ton of adoption in the future, the boring things.
I think one other thing I would add as well is that we're still waiting to see, who is the Microsoft in the space. So when I say the Microsoft in the space, I'm talking about, okay, who is the vendor that's actually enabling all of these AI use cases with large global enterprises. When in 5 years' time, when Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, Goldman Sachs, and Disney all have their AI contracts with a large global AI vendor, who is that AI vendor going to be? And where is that AI vendor going to be in the stack? Are they going to be an LLM? Are they going to be an application built on top of it? And what is the kind of perceived wisdom in the industry is that actually the value of LLMs are going to get commoditized, and they're going to become way less valuable. But what we have here is an LLM company directly doing a deal with an enterprise company. So there's no application built on top of it. They are the LLM is the application layer in this instance, or it's at least the vendor, the main vendor in this relationship. Um, so so I just think it's interesting to see how this space is developing in that way.
And it's good to see that non-tech companies are investing in deep tech directly without investing in a proxy company that sets up the layer for them. And you asked a good question: who's going to be the Microsoft of this mass AI distribution? I think it's going to be a company that takes MCP seriously. And for people who don't know, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's basically if you want, it is to AI what HTTPS is to the internet. It's basically the glue that puts together all the moving pieces. And I think a company that nails MCP as a service, if you want, will likely become the next Microsoft for people looking to integrate AI, because it's going to be so simple to integrate AI that all they need to do is sign a contract. And MCP will not automatically tackle all the problems, but nearly very seamlessly, I would say.
I'm going to hold you to that quote for all of our future client implementations. All you need to do is sign the contract.
Yeah. Then we'll take on the rest. Cool. What's next on the line? What's next on the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, so following a similar theme, really. And again, it's just trying to work out where is the opportunity in AI, right? 99% of businesses are not, or 99.9% of businesses are not Fortune 500 companies. They are small SMEs of 50 to 100 employees, and they're trying to work out how do they create an AI monetization layer in their business. And I thought this week Andreessen Horowitz came up with a particularly interesting take in their latest article, where they basically talk about the BPO industry. So for anyone that doesn't know, there are a ton of, I suppose, low value, high volume, repetitive tasks that happen inside any company. And so for anyone that is not familiar with the BPO industry, BPO stands for business process and outsourcing. And it's essentially how large companies or even medium-sized companies outsource low-value, repetitive tasks. So think things like customer service agents or process administration or just back office administration in general. There are multi-billion-dollar companies like, for instance, Accenture or Wipro or Cognizant, Infosys, Tata Consulting Services that will provide you hundreds, if not thousands, of employees that are typically offshore and typically, working out of large contact centers or large offices delivering these outsourced services. And Andreessen Horowitz wrote an article this week. Andreessen Horowitz is probably one of the world's largest and most successful venture capital firms, and is funding many of the AI companies that we cover most weeks on the podcast. And they basically made the point that given the development of large language models, how fast the reasoning capabilities are advancing, the integration of voice AI agents and voice-enabled large language models, that the likely first casualty of the development of these tools is going to be these business process and outsourcing companies. It's very unlikely that if you call into a call center in 5 years' time, that you're going to be speaking to a contact center agent in the Philippines or in India. You are way more likely to be speaking to an AI agent in the future. And so we are going to see a massive amount of disruption in this space in particular. But curious to get your take here.
I mean, we're seeing that already, right? We're seeing AI not taking jobs. We've talked about that before. I don't think AI is meant to take jobs, but AI is meant to take on the repetitive aspects of certain jobs. And we're speaking here about content creation, customer support, 24/7 customer support, right? The AI agent doesn't get tired. The AI agent doesn't get bored. The AI agent can grasp a ton of context. The question I'm keen to understand is, how is this going to change consumer products in the future? We have all these AI products. We have all these non-human interactions. I'm speaking to clients and other people in my network, and sometimes they're like, yeah, dude, I love this AI movement, but sometimes I just want to speak with a human when I have a problem I have to solve. How do you see this interplay between humans still wanting to speak to humans versus humans wanting to get their job done as quickly and as cheaply as possible?
I don't think it's a case of humans wanting to speak to humans. I think we presume that's what it is. But I actually think that the only reason when you want to speak to a human or someone wants to speak to a human is because the AI isn't as good as the human in getting your problem solved and understanding the context and actually helping you find a resolution quickly. So if I ask you a question, if you could, for 90% of your stuff, or for 90% of my stuff, I now order it on Amazon. 15 years ago, it would have been a 12-step click process to get an order, and it would have taken me a week to get to me. And so my preference would be to go into store and order a physical good from a physical person, because that's a better experience and it gives me a better solution, because I can get hold of what I want when I want it faster. Now, it's a complete flip. I would never order something in person unless I absolutely needed to, and I will order almost everything online because it's a better experience. As soon as an AI agent is able to offer a better experience than a human being, whether that's getting the problem solved faster, giving them more information, giving them more context, it will actually flip to the point that you'll be annoyed when you're speaking to a human being because you'd much prefer to be speaking to the AI agent. In my opinion, I think that's
The
the way
current state of me using customer support agents is looking for the fastest way to get to speak to a human agent, because I know most of them, because I don't use a support agent because I'm bored, right? I'm using a support agent because I have a very specific problem. For example, a few days ago, my VAT number wasn't showing up on one of my invoices. And I wanted to reach out to support because I couldn't find a way to do it on the company's platform. And what I did was just looked for the shortest way to click through the prompts to get to speak to a human. And to your point, it's because agents are maybe not good enough yet to solve very custom problems or to take some decisions that would require a human in the loop.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why it comes to when we're thinking about selling products to customers, right? Customer service leaders are typically concerned with two things: the cost of serving customers, the cost to serve, and the quality of the experience that that customer has. And I mean, it's a really interesting thought exercise to think, okay, with LLMs in their current state today, for which customer service use cases would a LLMs definitely are cheaper, right? It's definitely cheaper than to use an LLM. I would imagine, you tell me if you think I'm wrong, but it was definitely cheaper to use an LLM, you would imagine, because you don't have to pay them holiday pay, you don't have to give them a salary, you don't have to give them benefits, you don't have to give them an office space, they don't go on maternity leave or sick leave. So providing that you can get the cost of compute down sufficiently, it should be cheaper for an LLM to serve you. The question is, are there any use cases today that an LLM would actually be better at finding a resolution for than a human being would? And that's probably where those first early adopters are going to be.
And the simple answer to that is, first of all, yes, I think the objectively, the cost of language models, just for simple use cases, are significantly lower than costs of humans when you factor in all the benefits you spoke about, holiday, not working 24/7, and so on and so forth. And the obvious winners in this industry, the obvious use cases where language models would be significantly better than humans is in scenarios where you have a ton of data, a ton of, let's say, documentation, a ton of product data, a huge website that a human service agent cannot reasonably learn by heart, cannot go through in 5 seconds, maybe less, and give you a good answer. And that's the type of use case where customer support, AI-backed agents will win. Or companies that use them will win, of course.
So it's about complexity.
Yes, I would say so. And the inability of humans to grasp huge contexts of data in 2 seconds.
Very cool.
But who helps with that? We're back to OpenAI, right? And with huge numbers again. We briefly touched on this in the beginning of the podcast, but OpenAI gets 40 billion in funding at a 300 billion valuation. That's probably the biggest numbers I've ever heard when it comes to valuations. And this comes in a context where Sam Altman just tweeted something interesting last week. We'll put this on the screen. He says, change of plans. We are going to release O3 and O4 Mini after all, probably in a couple of weeks, and then do GPT-5 in a few months. You know, Colin, we were talking about GPT-5 a few episodes ago when Altman was speaking about how GPT-5 is much more interesting to him, was giving better results. It seems this is being postponed, and this is how he motivates this. There are a bunch of reasons for this, but the most exciting one is that we are going to be able to make GPT-5 much better than we originally thought. We also found it harder than we thought it was going to be to smoothly integrate everything, and we want to make sure we have enough capacities to support what we expect to be unprecedented demand. Do you recall last week when Sam Altman was posting about GPUs melting of people doing Ghibli images online?
I do.
Do you think this is similar? Do you think, how do you see all these moving pieces connecting together? GPUs melting, huge investment for a huge valuation, and GPT-5, which was supposed to be a big moment, getting postponed because of unprecedented demand.
Well, you're the engineer, so I'm going to immediately throw that back to you. What do you think all of this means?
It's hard to say. It could be that GPT-5 is so amazing that it's literally melting GPUs. It could be that it will come out with features that GPT-4 and pretty much all the other competitors don't have. And features I want to see include deep reasoning, basically a model that just thinks all night about my topic and gives me the best response I could have found myself. Way bigger context windows, so we can, let's say, deprecate the idea of using a RAG system. And for people who don't know, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, where you basically, for each question, you have to your language model, you just append some context so the model can answer in a more informed way. The bigger those models, the less the need to sample your knowledge base. You can just throw in ideally all your knowledge base. So this is those are the things I'm looking to see from the next release in ChatGPT. Basically, more capable models and multimodal models.
I mean, isn't it the case though that one thing we talked about prior to recording is that we're probably 0.1% penetration into the actual AI use cases, right? I think I used the analogy a few weeks ago whereby if you stare out at a distant star, you're basically staring into the past, and then if you look around you, you're looking at the present at the same time. Now, we're in a situation where we have loads of AI tech that's available, but a very, very, very low adoption rate relative to the potential. But like every time I use ChatGPT at the moment, it's freezing. Like it's not working because clearly clearly the GPUs are melting. So it seems like we don't have anywhere near enough compute to actually realize the use cases that we talk about every week. Like if 5% of companies adopted 5% of the available AI use cases, I mean, it would just what would happen? It would just crash every available data center, would it not?
We haven't covered NVIDIA or chip companies in a while, but I feel like with what you're saying right now, we will be forced to cover NVIDIA and chip companies in a few weeks' time, because I agree with you. It's if you draw the curve of adoption, it'll have a very long tail and a very high spike that accounts for the whatever 1 to 5 to 10% of companies adopting AI. Maybe 10% is already a too big number for adoption. But as you said, if 5% of the companies adopt AI tomorrow and do it properly and do it extensively to the extent that people used Ghibli images 1 week ago, yeah, GPUs might be melting and we might be faced with different types of challenges. Now people want to use AI, want to throw all their data to AI and want to do all these crazy things. Maybe we'll get stuck in blockers we weren't thinking of before. And that might be compute. One question I have for you, let's say more on the sales side, looking at the crazy numbers thrown out here, so 40 billion in funding. How do you feel about 40 billion towards one company in comparison to, let's say, 1 billion to 40 companies? Do you think this creates bubbles?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's just a trend that we're seeing that the private companies stay private for longer. In many cases, the private markets, they're not as liquid as the public markets, but there's several advantages to remaining a private company, right? Like you don't have to jump on the phone every quarter and be questioned by a 28-year-old from Goldman Sachs about why you have 2x your capex spend in a 6-month period. You don't have to spend every day of your life justifying your existence to the markets. So there's a huge number of advantages of being a private company, and if you can raise all of the capital that you need from private investors that understand your strategy, understand your vision, and are fine with you investing for the long term and sacrificing short-term profitability, sure, like why wouldn't you do it? So I think to give some context to the raise, I think the funding is coming from Masayoshi Son, who is a prolific investor who takes massive swings on huge companies. And famously, he took a massive swing on Uber that paid off incredibly well. That was when they were a very late stage private company. He took a similar swing on WeWork. So this is probably the biggest investment he's ever made, and I believe he's the lead investor in the round. And I think I would rather be answerable to Masayoshi Son every week, who understands my vision, who understands why it's worth investing for the long term, as opposed to your average analyst from Goldman Sachs.
Right. Here's one question I got a few days ago, and I think this fits well in the context of OpenAI getting a ton of money to build AI further. The question I got was, why all this spend on AI? We haven't seen any ROI so far, and AI is basically throwing money out of the window. That's a question I got. Of course, I have a significantly different view on the value of AI, but I'm curious to take your opinion on this. Do you think this is valid? Do you think people still don't see the value in AI?
It's just a question of time horizons, right? Like if you're going to value a company based on price to earnings multiples, and you're going to orientate yourself in the short term, then AI is essentially just taking a big pile of cash and lighting it on fire. If you see capitalism from the perspective of 10-year time horizons, and investing in innovation. I mean, I think it was Jeff Bezos that famously said, if you want short-term profitability, get out of my stock, sell my stock. And Amazon didn't make a profit for 10, 15 years. AI probably won't make a profit for 10 or 15 years as a technology category. But if you look at Amazon's share price chart over the last 10 years, it's a great strategy in the long term, a terrible strategy in the short term, and it really just depends what your time frame is.
So you're saying that AI is a long game?
I'm saying that AI is a long game, and anybody that looks at short term ROI in AI does not understand the investment thesis behind investing in technology. Full stop.
Right.
Right?
Cool.
Would you agree?
Yeah. I agree it's a long game, and I agree we're probably, if we would have visibility in all the term sheets and all the balance sheets of companies that are building AI nowadays, we'll probably see huge dips. If you compare profits, if you look at ROI just as a single metric, it's probably minus a big number. But I feel like we're just getting started. We're seeing small use cases. I would be against the idea that AI doesn't provide value, because AI doesn't have to be in your face. A product doesn't have to scream AI to tell you that, hey, this is AI optimized. So when your Uber comes 2 minutes earlier, when your groceries get delivered on time, when, I don't know, when your flight doesn't have a delay, nobody tells you, look, 2 minutes, it's because of AI. But for sure, AI and automation and looking at data help find these very small increments in customer quality, if you want, in quality of service for the customer. So that's my view short term, that you'll see improvements from AI that don't scream AI. And of course, if you play the long game, you'll reap the benefits probably 10, 15 years from now, when we'll see real ROI generating use cases stemming from artificial intelligent models.
Yeah. I think the major bottleneck, though, will be companies actually adopting the technology that is already there and available. That, like, for instance, let's use the e-commerce example again. Most companies didn't build their own Amazon stores from scratch with hard code. Most companies didn't build e-commerce stores in 1999 or 2002. Even if you're a retailer, they adopted Shopify in 2007 and 2008 because it made it super easy for them to actually build e-commerce stores, right? So I think most companies don't have the internal capabilities as a team in terms of their talent base to actually adopt AI. And I think that's where we come in, right? We can actually help bridge the gap between the AI technology and the possibilities and the actual use cases being adopted by real companies in the real world. I think that's the challenge, and that's the bridge that AI needs to cross.
The AI needs to cross, and also the clients need to understand that AI has for sure applications in their business. It's a matter of speaking with people who know about AI to unlock that capabilities. Again, AI wouldn't just scream out of nowhere, hey, I'm here, just use me for customer support. You need people.
Let's just do an interesting thought experiment, right? Model context protocol came out 6 months ago, right? Off the top of your head, what are the use cases that the model context protocol enables for a let's say a 100-person e-commerce business? What are the use cases that the model context protocol enables that weren't possible prior to the model context protocol being released?
it's still vague on what MCP does and what exactly it means technically. There's some definitions, but it's not like HTTP yet to know exactly what's the protocol. But to your point, it enables a better intelligence system for your company. To your
That's so
e-commerce
vague.
example.
That's so vague.
That's
A
so
better...
vague, exactly. So let me explain. It enables you as an e-commerce, let's say you're the CEO of the 100 e-commerce person company.
Yes.
It enables you to connect with 100 stores, 200 providers, and 300 databases of previous sales without needing to build tech to connect to all this data. So all of a sudden, because you now have a context protocol, you can get intelligence from so many sources and you can take decisions based on data you have at your fingertips just because now you have a protocol that allows you to connect to these data sources.
What are going to be the one or two use cases from breakthrough use cases from MCP?
You know who wants to buy what at what time. I guess you can do that now, maybe not as efficiently and not as without such a high degree of accuracy. Very hard to answer, right? Because we need those early adopters to try MCP so we can understand how it helps them, because people get creative. You can draw market insights, you can have better customer support, you can be proactive on your sales. Very hard to say, right, on hypothetical cases. But I would say with intelligence come better decisions. And with better decisions, you decide what to do with them as a company CEO.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted because that's the thing, right? And I'm asking the question for a reason. If an AI engineer doesn't yet really know what the MCP means, like down the line for the average company, what can the average company actually do with MCP? If an AI engineer doesn't know that, then what's the chances of the business owners knowing that or implementing it? You know, that's like literally 5-6 years away, probably.
Back to your analogy with the star. Yeah, if you're looking at a star, you're looking at something that existed a while ago. It's exactly the same situation here.
And this was my experience at Salesforce. And this is why I make this point so much. I bang this point home. That the diffusion of the technology, where actually takes so long. I was having conversations with companies in 2020 about using Salesforce for a CRM, and they were still using spreadsheets. And they were a 200-person company. Salesforce had been selling cloud-based CRM since 2002. And I was still having conversations and describing the concept of a cloud-based CRM to companies in 2020.
Is this a sign that we just have a huge market that we just need to educate?
Yeah, and this is my point to you before. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. If it's like that Henry Ford quote, right? If I asked the people what they want, they'd say they wanted a faster horse. Okay, well, I think we're going to leave it there, because if it was up to me, we'd be speaking about AI 24/7 for the next week, but there needs to be some sort of reasonable time limit on this podcast. Mihai, this has been a fun episode. We'll be here for the same time again next week. Any closing remarks?
Any closing remarks? MCP seems big, and melting GPU is not a good sign.
Okay, all right. See you next week, guys. Thanks. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.